You're watching a woman. She's intelligent, she's careful, she notices everything. When she's drawn to someone older, something shifts. It's not about age, it's about what age represents: maturity, stability, knowing yourself. But here's what most people miss. She doesn't just want him, she's testing him. And if you understand these two questions, you understand female psychology. If you want to go deeper into how women think, hit subscribe now. This channel explores the real patterns, not the surface, not the fantasy, the truth. Let's start here. Women and older men. This dynamic appears everywhere, but people always get it wrong. They think it's about money or power or the simple fact of age itself. That's surface-level thinking. The real reason runs much deeper. A woman drawn to an older man is sensing something specific. Not his bank account, not his status. She's sensing his relationship with himself. An older man has lived. He's failed. He's succeeded. He's been tested. And if he's worth anything, he's learned from it all. That's attractive, not because he's old, but because he's integrated his experience. He knows who he is. A younger man is still figuring it out, still performing, still trying to convince himself. A woman feels this difference immediately. She can sense it in the way he takes up space, the way he listens, the way he doesn't need her approval. That's the real draw, not his age, his groundedness. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When a woman is drawn to an older man, she doesn't just accept him, she tests him. This is crucial. This is where most men fail. When a woman tests a man, she's not trying to make him fail. She's being smart. She's gathering information about his character, about his integrity, about whether he's the man he appears to be, because older men have more experience, more resources, more influence. So the stakes are higher. If she chooses him, she's choosing something significant. She needs to know he's trustworthy. She needs to know he's real, not just presenting himself well, but actually solid. So she tests. The first question emerges like this. It's not always spoken. It's asked through actions, through observation, through situations. But the question is, do you know who you are? This reveals everything. A man who knows himself has a direction. He has values. He has non-negotiables. He knows what he stands for and what he won't tolerate. When a woman tests for this, she's watching for consistency. Does this man stay the same person regardless of who's in the room? Is he one way with her, another way with his friends, a third way with his family? Or is he integrated, complete, the same authentic person everywhere? That's what she's testing for. Because an integrated man can't be manipulated. He can't be bent. He can't be distracted from his own center. That's safety. That's real strength. Let's go deeper into this first test. A woman watches how a man handles pressure when things don't go his way. When she disagrees with him, when the world pushes back, does he crumble? Does he lash out? Does he try to get her approval? Or does he hold steady? Does he listen without losing himself? Does he adapt without compromising? That's the test. It's about having a core, a foundation, something unmovable. A younger man often doesn't have this. He's still constructing his identity. An older man who's worth anything already did that work. He knows his own mind. He knows his own value, and he doesn't need a woman to validate it. This is what the first question uncovers. Does this man need me, or does he choose me? The difference is fundamental. A man who needs her is weak. He's dependent. He'll shape himself around her. Eventually, she'll lose respect. A man who chooses her, who has his own solid center, who could walk away and be fine, but chooses to stay. That generates real attraction, real respect, real desire. Now, the second question is deeper. It requires more observation. It takes time to surface. The second question is, do you respect women or do you just want them? This is where most men fail completely. They confuse desire with respect. They confuse attraction with genuine regard. A woman is watching for something very specific. How does this man view women, not just her, women in general? Does he see them as full human beings with complexity, with agency, with minds and purposes beyond his attraction? Or does he see them as objects, as acquisitions? The way a man talks about other women reveals his truth. The way he talks about women who've rejected him, the way he relates to women he's not trying to seduce. This reveals whether he respects women or sees them as conquests. Here's what's critical. An older man attracts a woman because he's lived. enough to potentially respect women, to understand them, to see them as equals. But many older men with power have learned the opposite. They've learned they can have what they want. They see women as means to an end. They see attraction as compliance. They see desire as permission for any behavior. This is where the test becomes crucial. A woman needs to know, does he respect women because he's evolved, or has he just gotten better at getting what he wants? So, what does this question look like in practice? She notices whether he listens to women, not just hears, but actually listens. Does he take their perspective seriously? Does he ask questions? Does he try to understand, or does he already know better? Does he dismiss? A man who respects women is curious about their thinking. He's interested in their perspective. He doesn't need to agree, but he genuinely engages. A woman tests for this. She brings up her thoughts, her opinions, and she watches. Whether he receives them, whether he values them, or whether he dismisses them, explains why she's wrong. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Many older men, especially those with status, fail this test. They've spent decades believing their own power. They've had women accommodate their flaws. And when a woman tests them, when she's watching for real respect, they can't fake it, or they try to, and she sees through it immediately. A woman can feel the difference between a man pretending to respect her and one who actually does. Respect is felt. It's in the energy. It's in the quality of attention. It's in the willingness to be challenged. It's in the openness to being wrong. A man who respects women isn't threatened by their intelligence. He's not intimidated by their independence. He doesn't need to shrink anyone to feel larger. Let's expand on what these two questions reveal about female psychology. When a woman is drawn to an older man, she's not naive. She's not just reacting to surface attraction. She's running a sophisticated evaluation. She's asking these questions because she knows the difference between a man who's integrated his experience and one who's just aged, between a man who's genuinely mature and one who's learned to perform maturity. She's testing for character, for integrity, for the kind of man who gets better with age, not the kind who just gets older. The first question tests for integration. It tests for the quality of a man's interior life. Has he examined himself? Has he built something solid inside? Or is he just a collection of reactions? A man who knows himself has boundaries, real boundaries. Not walls that keep everything out, but boundaries that let good things in and bad things out. A woman observing his boundaries sees if he allows her in while maintaining his own integrity. Does he stand for something? This takes maturity. This takes a man who's done internal work. The second question tests for evolution. Has he transcended the ego that tells him he's superior? Has he moved beyond the need to control? Has he developed genuine empathy, genuine interest, genuine regard for women as full human beings? Not as functions, not as roles, but as complete people. A man who respects women doesn't need them to be small. He doesn't need them to be less. He's secure enough to want them to be whole, to be themselves completely. This is rare. This is what the test reveals. Now let's talk about what happens when a woman tests a man and he fails. When she asks the first question through observation and discovers he doesn't know who he is, that he's reactive, that he changes based on circumstances, a wise woman notices, something shifts. The attraction becomes conditional, uncertain, because she can't rely on him. He's not solid enough. And a woman doesn't want a man who's less solid than she is. When a woman discovers through her second test that he doesn't respect women, that he sees them as less, as conquests, as functions, the test is failed completely. And no charm can fix it because she knows something about him now, something she can't unknow. She knows he will disrespect her if given enough power. She knows she's not truly safe with him because his respect is conditional based on her utility, not her inherent worth. Here's what's important about female psychology. Women are not testing men to punish them. Women are testing men because they're smart, because they're protecting themselves, because choosing a partner is consequential. It affects your life, your safety, your future, your sense of self. A woman choosing an older man enters a dynamic with complexity, history, potential power imbalance. So her tests are more rigorous, her observations more careful. She needs to know, is this man someone I can trust? Is this man someone I can respect? Is this man someone I can stand beside, not behind, not beneath, beside? The tests reveal whether this is possible. Let's talk about what these tests mean for men. If you're an older man, if you want to understand why some women stay and others don't, these two questions explain everything. The women who stay develop real loyalty, real respect. The women who choose you continuously, not just once, but over time. They're the ones who've tested you and you've passed. You know who you are and don't need her to tell you. You respect women genuinely, not as a tactic, but as a fundamental worldview. You see her as your equal, maybe in different ways, but fundamentally equal. A woman who tests you and discovers this won't leave because she knows something rare. A man with integrity, a man she can trust, a man she can respect. That's not common. That's valuable. But here's the uncomfortable part. Not every man passes these tests. Most don't. Most men, even older ones, haven't done the internal work. They're still reacting, still performing, and they haven't evolved to genuine respect for women. They've learned to fake it. But a woman's test cuts through performance. She sees the truth. When she realizes he doesn't know himself or doesn't respect her, the attraction dies. Not dramatically always, but it dies. And no resources can revive it because respect once lost is difficult to rebuild. Now let's talk about what it means for women to run these tests. This is female agency in its purest form. This is a woman choosing herself. She's saying, I matter enough to be careful. I matter enough to investigate. I matter enough to test. I won't just accept whoever comes along. I will evaluate. I will assess. I will determine whether this person is worthy of my time. This is strength. This is not arrogance. This is self-respect. There's a particular kind of woman who tests like this. She's quiet sometimes. She observes. She's deeply intelligent. She sees beneath the surface. She doesn't take things at face value. She's skeptical, not bitter, just skeptical. She's learned something important. Attraction is not enough. Attention is not enough. Resources are not enough. Character matters. Integrity matters. A man's actual relationship with himself matters. A man's actual regard for women matters. This woman runs these tests automatically because she's learned this lesson and won't compromise it. Let's talk about what it looks like when a man passes both tests. When a woman discovers he knows who he is and respects women, what happens? It looks like safety. Not because he's controlling, but because he's stable. It looks like mutual respect. Real, not transactional. It looks like her being able to be herself, not performing, not trying to be small, just being who she is and being received, being valued, being appreciated. It looks like partnership, not ownership, not obligation. Partnership. That's what passing tests reveals. If you've been learning something here, if this resonates with something you felt but couldn't name, subscribe now. This channel explores real patterns of human psychology. Not the surface, not fantasy, but actual dynamics that determine whether relationships work, whether people stay, whether they grow. Subscribe so you don't miss the patterns. Let's talk about what happens when a man fails these tests. First, there's usually denial. She likes him. She's attracted. So she hopes she's wrong. She keeps testing. But the evidence keeps mounting. She sees his inconsistency, his reactivity, his need for validation, his inability to hold his ground. Eventually, the attraction changes. It becomes conditional, uncertain, and eventually it dies because you can't sustain attraction to someone you can't respect. When a man fails the second test, she feels tension, discomfort, a moment where his disrespect showed. He quickly covered it, apologized, said he didn't mean it, but she can't unsee it. She knows the truth now, and she watches for it again, and she finds it again and again. Small moments, a dismissal here, a condescending comment there, a double standard. She realizes he doesn't respect women. He respects her utility to him, and that's not enough. Here's what women need to know. If you're testing a man and he's failing, trust that. Trust your instinct. Trust your observation. Don't override it for the relationship. Don't think he'll change. Don't think you're being unfair. You're being accurate. Your tests are protecting you. Let them. Let's talk about broader implications. Female psychology is sophisticated. Women are doing this evaluation constantly in romantic relationships, in professional relationships, in friendships. Women are running tests, observing patterns, making assessments about whether people are trustworthy, whether they're grounded, whether they respect her. This is not paranoia. This is intelligence. This is survival. This is wisdom. A woman who trusts her tests, who listens to her observations, who doesn't override her own knowing, will make better choices. she'll build better relationships, she'll protect herself. Now, if you're a man and women keep leaving, if relationships keep failing, it's worth asking yourself honestly, do I know who I am? Have I done the internal work? Am I grounded or still reacting? Second question, do I actually respect women? Not in theory, but in practice, in my actual behavior, in my actual language, in my actual regard. If you can't answer yes to both, if there's work to do it. Because that work is where real maturity lives. That work is where real strength comes from. Let's talk about time. A young woman might not run these tests yet. She might still believe love is enough, that effort is enough. But as she matures, as she experiences disappointment, as she watches relationships fail, she learns these tests. She becomes more rigorous. She becomes less willing to compromise. An older woman, a woman who's lived, she's perfected these tests. She's devastatingly accurate because she's learned the hard way. What matters? What doesn't? What's worth investing in? What's a waste of time? An older man, if he's worth anything, understands this. He understands that a woman testing him isn't being difficult. She's being smart. She's being self-protective. She's being wise, and he respects that. He doesn't try to bypass her tests. He doesn't try to charm his way past her observations. He simply passes them by being who he claims to be, by having done the work, by having integrated, by having developed respect. That's it. That's all. Here's what I want you to understand. If you're a woman, your tests are valid. Your observations are valid. Your intuition is valid. Don't let anyone gaslight you into thinking you're too critical, too careful, too guarded. You're protecting yourself. That's wisdom. That's self-respect. That's choosing you. If you're a man, understand what these tests mean. A woman running these tests is interested enough to evaluate. She sees something in you, but she won't invest without verification. That's actually a good sign, because if you pass, she's going to be worth having. She's someone with standards, someone with boundaries, someone with her own ground to stand on. That's valuable. These two questions really reveal one deeper question. Are you evolved? Have you become who you're capable of becoming? Or are you still working through the basics? An older man who hasn't answered affirmatively is just old. He's not wise, he's not grounded, he's not ready, and a woman is right to pass. Let's circle back to female choice. This is the most important part. A woman testing a man exercises her choice. She claims her agency. She says, I am not passive. I am not just receiving a man's attention. I am active. I am evaluating. I am deciding. That's power, real power, not domination, not control, but agency. The ability to shape her own future, to protect herself, to choose deliberately. When a woman exercises this power, when she runs these tests, she's not being selfish. She's not being difficult. She's being wise. She's being healthy. She's someone who respects herself. And that self-respect makes her a better partner, more secure, more grounded, more able to be present because she's not desperate. She's not compromised. She's clear. And clarity makes for better relationships. If you found this valuable, if you want to understand deeper patterns about how women think, how they choose, how they evaluate, subscribe now. This channel exists to explore these real dynamics, not surface fantasies, but actual psychology that determines outcomes, that determines whether people stay, whether they grow, whether they thrive. Subscribe so you understand these patterns. Apply them to your own life. Let's end with this. These two questions. Do you know who you are? Do you respect women? They're not just about romantic relationships. They're about basic human development. Whether someone has become whole, whether someone has evolved, whether someone is actually ready for real partnership. These are the tests that matter. These observations count. These separate people going through motions from people who are awake, actually grounded, actually evolving. So if you're a woman, trust your tests. Trust what you're observing. Trust what you're feeling. You're right. Your instinct works. Your intelligence operates. Your self-P protection activates. That's good. That's healthy. That's you choosing yourself. If you're a man, ask yourself honestly, do I know who I am? Have I integrated my experience? Or am I still performing? Do I respect women genuinely? Or is my respect conditional? Answer honestly. If there's work to do it. Because that work is where real maturity lives. That work is where real strength comes from. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more content exploring real patterns of human psychology. Subscribe for truth, not fantasy. Subscribe for depth, not surface. Subscribe because understanding these patterns matters. Thank you.